Hello, and welcome to this edition of The List on UWW-TV. I'm Mason Miller alongside Nadiri Morgan Thompson. For the next few minutes, we'll present our top 5 stories of the week and discuss why they made the top 5. Did your top 5 make our list? Let's find out. Number 5. At number 5, the Packers defeated the depleted Rams 24-19. After training at halftime, the Packers offense blew up in the third quarter to establish a lead that they held the rest of the game. With the Vikings and Bears both winning this week and the Lions having a bye, where do the Packers stand in the division?
You know, quite frankly, Mason, I don't believe that this is a very impressive win by the Packers. They beat up on a very injured Rams team, and their offense still didn't look very effective. Tucker Kraft had a great game, but besides those 2 touchdowns, it was a lot of big plays, right? If we look at the Vikings, we look at the Lions, there's a lot more consistency, right? Jared Goff had a perfect game the last time he played. The last one in like 100 years, and the Vikings have had the best defense in the league, led by defensive coordinator Brian Flores, along with Sam Darnold looking like a legit MVP contender, and Justin Jefferson looking like the offensive player of the year. If we're talking about the Vikings, the Lions, and the Packers are the third best in their division. And quite frankly, I don't see them as a Super Bowl contender. Now, can they make a playoff push? I do believe that to be true. But in terms of where they stand in the division, I'm not very impressed. You know, what are your thoughts on that, Mason?
I mean, there's a reason that the NFC North is, at least in my opinion, the strongest division in football. You look at all these teams, and in my opinion at least, they're all somewhat championship contenders in their own rights. I mean, nobody expected the Vikings to play this well, but at this point you have to accept them as being what they are. It's looking okay for the Packers. Hopefully they can tighten up and be better next time. Number 4. After 9 seasons with Minnesota, Karl-Anthony Towns has been traded to the New York Knicks. The Timberwolves have sent Cat to the Knicks in exchange for Julius Randle, Dante DiVincenzo, Keita Bates-Diop, and a 2025 first-round pick. What does this transaction do for these 2 teams as well as the players involved?
To me, I think that this is what makes the Knicks a legit championship contender. Karl-Anthony Towns is arguably the greatest shooting big man in all of NBA history, right? And if you add that type of floor spacing to this New York Knicks team, it makes them unstoppable. Jalen Brunson had one of the highest usage percentages in the league last year in terms of getting to the rim. And if they have to respect Karl-Anthony Towns on the perimeter, they can't keep a big man in the center. And that makes Jalen Brunson one of the best scorers in the league already, even more lethal. And on top of that, they have shooters on top of shooters. They have Mikal Bridges and OG Anunoby in the corners, and Karl-Anthony Towns as well, who is a very lethal scorer in his own right. I think this makes them a legit contender. If you look at the Timberwolves, I think this moves them a step back. But at the end of the day, they have Anthony Edwards. Julius Randle is still all-star. Dante DiVincenzo is one of the best role players in the league. They have Rudy Gobert, and they add Dante DiVincenzo, one of the best role players in the league. They look very well. How do you feel about that, Mason?
I mean, I understand what you're saying. Cats were the best shooting bigs of all time. That's cool in the regular season. The Knicks are trying to win a championship. And at the end of the day, Karl-Anthony Towns turns into a kitten when it's time to show up in the playoffs.
That's actually incorrect, Mason. I hate to cut you off, but he had his best playoff performance in his whole career last year. He is the reason why the Timberwolves are able to beat a team like the Nuggets, who are the reigning champions. Disrespecting Karl-Anthony Towns in 2024 is simply unacceptable.
I guess, man. Well, moving on to number 3, Whitewater bounced back against the Oshkosh Titans the past Saturday, 21-14. Oshkosh took the lead with an opening drive touchdown, but Whitewater responded quickly and never looked back. They sealed the game by converting a risky 4th down attempt in their own territory to run down the clock. With a much-needed win coming off their bye week, is Whitewater back on track?
You know, I like to think so. Our running attack is very potent, right? But at the end of the day, it's our quarterback play that's holding us back. The quarterback has struggled to hit a lot of deep balls, and even the even the intermediate game, he struggled to hit a lot of passes across the middle of the field. The defense is great, the running attack is great, but nobody's going to respect the run until our pass can be respected. So until then, the team's a little suspect, but I have faith in our Warhawks. How do you feel about that, Mason?
I mean, like you said, at the end of the day, Whitewater's bread and butter is the run game. Tamir Thomas had 123 yards with an average of 4.7 yards per carry. That is insane. And then 1 touchdown to put the cherry on top. That's what our team's all about. Our quarterback doesn't need to be Superman because the guy who wears that cape, last name is Thomas. I believe the Whitewater is going to keep on the same track and continue to show why they are one of the best D3 teams in college football. There's a reason why we broke records for attendance last game.
Yeah, that's all fair. I just think, in terms of balance of an offense, you got to have a decent quarterback as well.
That's fair enough. We've got more coming up on the list, including the Brewers postseason and the MLB postseason as a whole. We'll be right back on the list.
Have you heard of UROC?
We're part of Whitewater and our own thing.
Come on, we'll show you.
I learned how to be a college student here, and now I'm headed off to Madison to study global health, and I know I'm ready.
People like me who aren't a fan of big crowds would really like UROC because it's welcoming and it's laid back.
My advisor helped me figure out my schedule, organize my time, fill out my FAFSA, and figure out what classes I liked and how to turn that into a major. And if I had to do it again, I would choose UROC.
You ready to rock?
You belong here.
For Hawk Talk, especially on days I'm hosting, you really need to be up early looking at those news stories, even the night before. I'm finding topics that I can incorporate in the show, and I feel like we get a conversation going.
Once you get the opportunity to do that with other people who appreciate it the same level as you do, it makes it that much more enjoyable.
For everything sports, tune in Monday through Thursday at 91.7 The Edge or watch us on UWW TV.
Your home for excellence in action. The WIAC Network. Watch and download here.
It's always been there, his love of the outdoors. Some days, you wonder if it might be his calling. Truth is, you know that the things he's passionate about today will build the foundation of what he does tomorrow, and possibly inspire a new journey. All he needs now is a way to make it happen. We are the Universities of Wisconsin. 13 universities, unlimited opportunity.
Welcome back to the list on UWW TV. Let's continue the countdown to this week's top sports stories. At number 2 on our list, Brewers fans, cover your ears. The Brewers' postseason dreams come to a screeching halt once again as the New York Mets will be advancing to the divisional round. Hooray. The Brewers held a 2-0 lead in the top of the 9th when Pete Alonso hit a 3-run home run to give the Mets a lead they never gave back. What are your thoughts on the game, the series, and the season as a whole for the Brewers?
I think the Brewers have another disappointing postseason, and it's getting to a point where it's like, what do we do from here? We have a good regular season every year. We make the playoffs. We do what we need to do, and then we get bounced in the wild card. We get bounced in the second round, and we have so many injuries. We have all these things that's on us back. I will say there's a silver lining though, right? Even though somebody like Christian Yelich is hurt, there's also like a lot of very good rookies on this team, right? If our team is young and youthful, along with some great veterans, that can be what we need to make a World Series next season. I was wondering how you felt about the Brewers this year, Mason.
Look, as a bandwagon Brewers fan of this year, here's my thing. As a sports fan in general, I can't continue to support losers. This is why I'll be taking my talents to the Detroit Tigers and roar Tigers roar. Unfortunately, the Brewers continue to show year after year after year, add a few more years in there for good measure, that they just can't get it done in the postseason. I feel bad for all you true Brewers fans, and I'm sorry that I'll no longer be able to be on your side. It's tough. And at number 1 on our list, the MLB playoffs. At our number 1 spot this week, the Mets weren't the only team to advance to the next round as the MLB postseason marches on. Tigers, woo, wow. They beat the Astros to now face the Guardians. The Royals beat the Orioles and will now face the Yankees. The Padres beat the Braves to go against the Dodgers. And the aforementioned Mets will be taking on the Phillies. Out of the teams left, what matchups interest you the most? And who do you see making a deep run in the playoffs?
You know, I'm very interested to see what those Phillies look like this year. I think that they're poised for a deep run, along with the Dodgers. And I also like the Guardians over the Tigers, in fact, and big Yankees guy as well. You know, I think this postseason run, there's a lot of parity around the league, right? We don't really know who's going to do what. You know, I'll be interested to see what the Phillies can do against the Mets. The Mets just knocked out the Brewers. The Dodgers, there's a lot of good matchups. You know, how do you feel about that, Mason?
Well, you see, my two personal teams are still in it. Of course, like I said, the Detroit Tigers, meow, are still there up against the Guardians. I think that's a tied series right now, 1-1. And I'm excited to see what the Tigers will be able to do and see if they can make a deep push. They're on somewhat of a Cinderella story right now, and you can't help but pull for them after being a bad team for so long. But at the end of the day, all eyes must see, all mouths must confess our GOAT. The LA Otanis will win the championship this year. You can hang your hats on it. If you're a betting man, go put down $100. Tell your wife it'll be okay. You're going to make your family rich. And with that being said, that'll do it for this edition of The List. We'll be back next week to talk up the latest sports headlines. For Nadiri Morgan-Thompson and the members of the UWW TV crew, I'm Mason Miller, and see you then.